more. Just I'm figuring out this new system.
Okay.
Let me just start the screen share and then you can. DC, can you give me the charger?
Okay, we're live, but let me just mute you.
Okay.
Okay. Let me know when you're ready. Okay, ready? Unmute, Gaurav, when you're ready. Gaurav? Just unmute when you're ready.
And we are back.
Yep, okay. Awesome. I'm gonna go on mute and start your presentation.
Yep. So today we are going to talk about opening up budgets, and just let's understand what does open budget data mean. So open budget data is publicly accessible online data. It can't be the hard copies which we have to retrieve through municipal corporations or district budget authorities. It can't be analysis which is available in terms of text and lots of pages of information, but not data points. It should be in a reusable format. It should also be without any restriction. It should be free and legally open to use and reuse. And also the most important part, it should be machine readable. It should be editable at the source itself. So these are the 4 key ingredients to make budgets open. And currently in India, there are very few budget documents which satisfy all of these 4 criteria. So let's look into Union Budget 2017-18. So what are the major changes? The number one was merging of plan and non-plan expenditures. So before 14th Planning Commission, we used to get all the budget documents with plan and non-plan distinction. But after the demolition of the Planning Commission and as per the Niti Aayog guidelines, we now get revenue and capital heads, bifurcations on revenue and capital heads instead of plan and non-plan expenditure. How does it affect for us to create an analysis on budget data? A, we don't have any comparability. We can't create time series of the data because format got drastically changed this year. B, there are missing major heads. So earlier, in demand for grants documents, there used to be major heads. Just to show you something like this. So this is 2016-17 demands for grants data for Ministry of Agriculture, Department of Agriculture Cooperation, and Farmer Welfares. So if you can see here, there used to be these budget codes, which we also call as major head for most of the investments, and there used to be bifurcation of actual values, budget values, and revised values based on plan, non-plan, and total values. So this has been the structure for approximately last 15 to 20 years. And we are able to create time series analysis and do most of the nitty-gritties, joining and slicing and dicing on the data because of the consistency in the structure. But this year, we've got something like this. So there are no major heads like this where we used to map each particular investment as per the major head. They are completely missing, as you can see here. And on the top, the headers are completely different. So we have classification based on revenue and capital. The idea was revenue and capital are more associated with the accounting term, that most of the capital stuff is a major one-time investment, which creates a longer-term impact. And revenue investments are something which are short-term. Currently, this kind of analysis is helpful for accountants to do most of the calculations, but also the definition of capital expenditure and revenue expenditure is very different across the countries. And in India, we are not certain what does it mean as per the current budget documents. So I would walk you through the process, how OpenBudget India is working to parse this data to make it more machine readable. So we are an open source initiative. We are not just an open data portal. We are a complete open source initiative. What does this mean? Our code, our programs are completely in open source in MIT license. Most of our data is in open source. Most of our design work is in open source. Also, our documentation and processes are written in open source as well. Most of them follow MIT and Creative Commons share alike license, so that people can use and reuse this stuff and come together and contribute on this platform. This is the GitHub link where most of our repositories are. github.com/cbjindia, where you can find approximately 13 repositories talking in detail about what we do. This is our data pipeline. So as soon as a ministry or a department uploads their budget on the web, we run our custom crawlers. A crawler is a bot which downloads most of your data from the website in an automated fashion. So as soon as ministries or departments upload their data on web, we run our custom crawlers to download that data. We pass that data to our parsing engine, which detects the tables, columns, rows from these unstructured PDF documents and create a CSV, plain CSV file. Those CSV files then go to a custom plugin. In a custom plugin, these are arranged as per the desired format for particular tier of government, particular department, but particular document type. For example, there would be a different format for expenditure documents, and there would be a different format for receipts data. And then with the help of researchers we have in-house at CBGA, we add a layer of metadata, talking about the notes, talking about the unit source, and a brief description about data, so that it's more easily searchable and people can comprehend this data in a better way. And then we have decided to upload this whole data sets on CCAM, which is a open source platform for creating data portals. We have wrote our custom plugins to give a flavor which was more required for our kind of work, our kind of budget documents. And we have made that as the design layer on top of existing CCAM. So this is how a normal demand for grant document is. A demand for grant talks in detail about the major components of a budget, which are more on the expenditure level. We are looking into Ministry of Agriculture and Farmer Welfare's demand document for Department of Agriculture, Research and Education. Given the structure, our algorithm try to find the bounding box. The one you can see in the blue is the major table bounding box, where we try to predict that most of the data is. And the green lines you can see determines the column and the major headers. So these green lines help us detect that this particular section, the first box would be talking about the particulars, the budget particulars. The second box would be talking about some other stuff. And generally, it's the actual values of last 2 years. Then second box is budget value of last year, revised value of last year, and then budget value of 2016-17, which was last year's current year. So we are talking about demand for grants 2016-17, last year's PDF document. You can also see there are some green lines outside the bounding box, which our algorithm ignores, considering that most of the data is covered inside the bounding box. And this process is repeated over the course of a PDF document because most of the table flows between the pages in a PDF document. And this algorithm then merges all this together in one CSV file, one single file per PDF document. And then we run this across all the documents available for a particular budget year. This is how a CSV file would look like once we have parsed this whole data. You can see easily now that we have extracted that table in a much cleaner aspect. We have not changed the format. We have not played around much with the data. We have kept it the way it was. We've just merged the lines which were splitted before. We have removed the empty spaces and some junk values wherever they are present. And then we upload this on the portal. So this is the link for the document, and you can go and see, explore the document. You can download the resource or you can use the API. So in the URL, the last string value after the slash talks about the resource ID, and that same resource ID is being used here to download the data from the API. API gives you a very simple JSON format so that you can directly plug and play in your application, create your own visualization, or do your own analysis from the data. So because of the streamlined process, we were able to parse all the union budget documents for year 2017 in less than 24 hours. It took us almost 24 hours to just make sure that the format is not breaking, because this year's data was having major changes in terms of headers and in terms of major hashs. That took us some time to fix. Most of the budget documents are available to download in CSV, XLX, and PDF. Ministry of Finance currently gives data only in PDF and XLX, but we also provide the CSV files. And as you can see, for each document, there is like a 2 to 3 lines of description, which talks in detail about what that ministry allocates on and what are the major schemes associated with it. For example, petroleum subsidy is part of Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas. So on, there would be Sarv Shiksha Abhiyan investment associated to Department of Higher Education, so on. And once we have this data, it's easier for us to visualize it. It's easier for us to uh, see the trends across the years. Budget at a glance is kind of a summary statement for the whole department or ministry. Uh, so that's why we are able to more or less create a time series out of it. So currently you're seeing a time series from 1994 till this year's budget, 2017-18. And you can play around in the visualization. I would give you a demo later for the same visualization. Similarly, you can see the trends in receipts, because receipts format was more or less same this year. We were able to cull out the data for receipts without any problem, but expenditure were drastically different, so we were not able to create trends in expenditure for this year's data. And once we have these visualizations and data up, researchers can use it to drive their own insights. So researchers sitting at CBGA, whose focus is mostly into developmental sectors, were able to cull out this data and draw their own analysis. And we were able to create this tool, Union Budget 2017.cbgindia.org. It gives you an insight of how several departments and ministries are investing budgets in social sector, covering especially sectors like drinking water, sanitation, education, health, social minorities, SC/ST, etc. Also, we are working with the DataKind Bangalore team to create another tool known as Story Generator to have a comprehensive comparison of state level fiscal indicators. For example, total expenditure of state as percentage of their gross state development product, and fiscal deficits, borrowing of a particular state, total receipts, so on. Eventually, we are trying to add schemes as well. So you would be able to see how much each state is investing in, say, Sarv Shiksha Abhiyan or Swachh Bharat Abhiyan, and so on. And then you can compare those states per GSDP figures, per capita figures, and so on. The major issue with budgets have been always the lack of standard and inconsistent formats. So we already saw the union budget. These are the document on your right, is the document for Karnataka state budget, detailed demand for grants, the document which talks about detailed expenditure. And on your left is receipts from PBMP. The formats are very different and you're not able to make any sense out of it because of the lack of structure there. In terms of ability also, there are only 26 states out of 29 who are publishing detailed demand for grants. Goa, Manipur, and Arunachal Pradesh are not yet publishing their budget documents on their websites. So there is no way for us to digitally acquire that data. Apart from those states, there are only 20 states which are publishing their documents in English. So there is some commonality there. There are 20 states which are publishing their documents in their local languages. So the green one are in English and the violet ones are in the local languages. The best practice is to publish in both the languages. So budget documents should be ideally bilingual. And unfortunately, there is only one state, which is Sikkim, that is publishing their documents in machine readable or XLS format. So here are some short best practices for publishing state budget documents, which we would try to propose. Um, so the Sikkim budget, they publish the PDFs as well as the Excels. Excels, as you can see, are not that clean, but it reduces our effort of mining the data from PDF, since it's a much more complicated process. This just helps us out to generate a clean CSV like this. And the amount of efforts required, time required in doing so is very less. And we can easily automate the pipeline. Then Bihar yesterday released their uh, budget for year 2017-18, and we have these font issues in the budget. So the encoding they have used is not open source, it's not UTF-8. So you can extract only some amount of information from this document. The rest is just gibberish or something which is not usable for us. So it's a major problem that most of the ministries and state budget departments don't take care of proper character encoding even when they publish the data in PDF. Same is the case with Chhattisgarh. We are seeing a budget document for 2014, 2015. It was slightly easy for Bihar because it was bilingual, so you can actually make sense. But for Chhattisgarh, since it's just in the local language, most of these figures you can't make any sense of. So these are the problems of which are very hard to fix, and where we would require certain consultations with the state budget bodies to make them understand these issues and fix them on the source itself. We have some other recommendations for Mr. The budget publishing agencies. Number one is we prefer bilingual formats and with open fonts, or they should also upload their fonts along with the data so that people can use it. This just helps people to consume data in local language as well as in English. The benefit of publishing data in English is you can then compare that information across states. Second one is consistency of structure across the years. If we keep changing the format, it would be very difficult for researchers or open data activists or civic technologists to create time series of information and just creates lockdown of knowledge. So we urge state bodies to continue the structure at the max, evolve that structure, but don't drastically change it because it won't make any sense for us to cull out the data from it. Have standard data formats and keep following those data formats over the course of years, and publish as much information as possible. That is another thing. As granular as possible would be the best to go. If possible, have a detailed metadata format as well, talking specifically about the units, if notes, if there are any disparities, so talking about those disparities, and so on. And having metadata format as exportable information is also something which we urge budget publishers to do. Finally, the most important one, please publish machine readable data. Uh, Even if it is XLS, it is good to start with. And the last one is have consistent and descriptive budget codes. So as we move down from states, from union budget to state budgets, and state budgets to municipality budgets, there is lots of change in terms of budget codes. Budget codes, you can consider them as unique identifiers for certain fiscal particulars. So it just hinders you to map everything together in one form and create linked data out of it if budget codes don't match from for each other. Also, we have seen over the course and in the change of parties, budget codes do vary. So it becomes difficult, and someone needs to create this big manual map of codes where this was called as A before, now it is called A1, and now we have another field known as A2, and makes so it was earlier known as B, so on. So these kind of things need to be recorded, which currently are not being done on the source. So if there are changes, those change logs should be made open as well. That is what we recommend. So that's it from the presentation perspective. I can quickly give you the demo of the tool. So so here you can browse most of the budget information. Uh, we have key features like getting budget documents and PDFs, directly accessing the machine readable data sets. So that you can write a scraper or use our APIs to directly download the machine readable information. We've also segregated data visualizations. So files which have data visualizations in them could be seen directly. For example, this is budget at a glance time series. And you can zoom in. For example, if you are interested just for last 5 to 6 years, this is how information is. And there are all the particulars. You can see the capital receipts, how they have been changing in the past. Zoom in, zoom out, and compare just the budget estimates with revised estimates or actuals with revised estimates using this tool. And we also have something known as budget basics. It educates people on how to read budgets. What does a union budget cycle look like? It's kind of a introductory guideline for people to understand budgets in a better way. We have prepared this for all tiers of government, not just union budget, um, and how to read a budget document. That is also explained here. Similarly, for municipal corporation budgets, we explained how things work in an urban local government. Apart from the key features, you can download data based on tiers of government. Combined budget consists of Indian public finance statistics budget, which consists most of the transfers from union to state. Union budget, state budgets, the detailed budget documents, and municipal corporation budgets. We've also classified budgets in terms of sectors. Uh, these are the major 12 sectors which we want to focus on, major developmental sectors. And we are working to map more. And you can help us improve our code base via GitHub. And these are the major repositories we have been working on. So yep, that's it from my end. Nisha, you're on mute.
Huh, sorry, I was talking. Thank you so much, Gaurav. That was really informative. I have a couple questions,
Sure.
if you don't mind, if you and Simonti don't mind. When going through all this budget data, what kind of surprised you the most? Um, kind of like in terms of insight into how the government works or how money is allocated, or even just like you mentioned the standards and the codes and how it's kind of a big mess. But does it seem that it was organized from the point of view of the accountants in the government, or do they also kind of struggle with these formats, etc.?
So, in my opinion, I feel they would be struggling with the mess they have created, I guess, because budget goods are not consistent and they don't think it from a tech or a database system. So, there's one surprise, which was, I think, Madhya Pradesh and Chhattisgarh still use Fox Pro for processing their budget information, and Fox Pro got out of development, like Fox Pro stopped development and release of software in 2009, I guess. So they're using outdated systems to manage their information, outdated uh, processes and techniques to get this data and publish this data, and as well as maintain this data. Simonti, do you have an insight there?
Yeah, I think I agree with what Gaurav is saying. I mean, when it comes to especially state budgets, the entire thing is a mess. So, as Gaurav would know, uh, no two states would seem similar in their budget documents, and the difficulties are on many levels, not one. So I don't know. Maybe sitting with each of them in trying to make them understand the difficulties that technical persons face when they try and read these data would be helpful, because right now it's really difficult. So I kind of agree with Gaurav that maybe they don't know the kind of mess that they are creating. So yeah, that's about it.
Also, I strongly feel that they don't talk among each other. So there's
True.
no platform where budget publishers come together and discuss things with each other. There is no government mandate best practices for them to follow.
Maybe the consistencies go on because of that also.
Yes.
Yes.
Then how are they using this budget data? Is it just like they're looking at the numbers and looking at the money they're getting and waiting for it to come in, or you know are they using it for any kind of analysis on their own end?
I think they would be definitely using at least certain section of this data, at least the aggregate data, for drawing the most of their analysis. But there is no public proof of uh, great usage or consumption of detailed demands of grants data, where you can actually see most of the money is flowing into. So for aggregate data, yes, but for disaggregated data, uh, I'm too solely doubtful on that front. Simanti, do you have any
Yeah,
perspective on that?
I think, organizations like CBGA and others who deal with budget data over the years, maybe they, through their practices, have developed certain expertise in reading these files. But for somebody who's uninitiated in these, it's extremely difficult. People who are coming out with these budget data, the state budget organizations, they are in a better position because they deal with these things day in day out. But for anyone else, when you say whether they're using this data for analysis or not, I really don't see that much of analysis, especially on a state level. uh, I mean, then if you go down further, then though it's a mess altogether. For example, municipal corporations, many of them do not even have hard copies of their budget documents. So you need to file RTIs to get them. So that's, that's really a difficult starting point. And then to come to analysis from that is a whole new story altogether. So, yeah.
And I think one important aspect is in India, we have this concept of revised estimates, and that gives us a big, uh, big head start on why we are doing this messed up process. So most of the other governments have just budget estimates and accounts, the actual. They don't have something mid-year or something mid-session budget. So that's the whole thing. We are not able to maintain the system in a timely process. That's why we need revised budgets. That's per my understanding.
And maybe it just increases the confusion a lot
Yes.
more.
Oh, that's really depressing. I have one more question. DataMeet was invited to um, a consultation on the budget with the Ministry of Finance, and we gave some recommendations. There was a room full of people who gave their own recommendations, and then the economic survey, was done, and one of our recommendations was in it, and then they immediately replaced, gave the budget. And it was kind of interesting from us because we had this weird kind of investment in the budget process, but there was so much of it we actually didn't quite understand, and the relationship between the economic survey and the budget was not really clear because the economic survey is a very good document, but the budget wasn't very clear. Simonti, can you kind of go through, like, from your knowledge, what that relationship could be? Is it just like a big sort of exercise in, suggestions, that then goes into a black hole, and we don't know, how they're really weighing or kind of understanding what these suggestions are and how to fund different things?
Yeah, actually, you are right, Nisha, because this time there has been, mixed opinions about the economic survey. So some people say that it's a very good analysis on its own, but when you compare it with the budget, it seems like there's a link missing. And many are of the opinion, as we have also discussed in CBGA quite a lot, the problem lies with the fact that they have removed the detailed appendices which used to be there for the economic survey of previous years, which serve as a very useful explanation, in very detailed manner of what they have done and how the budget is structured. This time that is missing, and hence I think a lot of explanation is lost in between. So yes, you're right. I mean, more could have been done on that front, I think. Gaurav, what do you think?
Yep, I completely agree. So it's not just the economic survey missing appendices, it's budget as well, missing lots of appendices.
Yes.
So it just seems like they have put up a puzzle for us to solve. And I don't know whether we would be able to solve. There's no mechanism or there's no feedback loop for us to uh, understand it. That's the major problem. Nisha?
Yeah, sorry, I was on mute again and I forgot. I'm just kind of scanning through. There are no questions right now, but I just want to ask one more question, and then we can wrap up. From CBGA's point of view, you guys do a lot of analysis for, development and for social groups on, how the budget relates to them and getting access to programs and rights, etc. How has the process of open data affected, you guys there? Was it, painful? Was it useful? Do you think it's worthwhile? What is basically kind of the feeling about giving all this data away, that it's hard work to process, given Gaurav's presentation. So I can imagine that it might feel a little counterintuitive given the amount of work you guys done, but what is kind of the feeling around sort of opening up this data, the process of opening it up? Was it valuable? Will you recommend it to others, basically?
Simonti, you want to go ahead?
You go ahead. I think you would be in a better position to answer.
So from the technologist perspective, I would say the initial months, 3 to 4 months, just went into bridging the grip. So there was big gap in how researchers understand data, and there's a big gap between how technologists understand data. So that building that bridge is something which took us most of our time, and onboarding everyone at CBGA to look into budgets in a different perspective, that also took a lot of time. But now when they see, so like just to quote an example, 2017-18 budget came approximately at 2 p.m. On 1st Feb. But earlier people used to manually download this data and then draw their analysis, because CBG has this thing that we present our analysis in just 24 hours, and we do have a panel discussion after that. So the whole report should be ready by then. And most of the time we used to go into just getting the data from the website. Given the website goes really slow and sometimes get 404 error, internal server errors, and so on. So with the help of technology coming in, we just got data in 5 minutes, and we were able to share it with not just internally at CBGA, but other people in a very short span of time when the government website was down. So they are now appreciating the automation technology is bringing in their life, so that they don't need to do all those mundane tasks which they have to do before. They can now focus their energy in doing much more analysis in given the time they have, and connect with multiple people, multiple civil society organizations to drive much more advanced level budget analysis, which was previously quite difficult because of the whole whole cumbersome approach of doing so. So we are trying to automate most of the stuff, uh, which is taking more time at CBGA, and I think that's something which is coming as a surprise and amusement to most of the researchers, as per my understanding. Simanti?
Yeah, so it was a great surprise actually, because on the day of the budget we were already discussing that when should we start an analysis, given the fact that the website is down most of the time and we don't get hang of the data. But Gaurav sends a link with the entire data set, and it just put smiles on everybody's face, because then they could just start on their analysis right away. I think what comes as a surprise every time is what technology can do. And researchers in India, I more so in India, I think, are less aware of the scope that technology has. And it's not a process which is smooth, or it's not a one step process, but simply to make researchers like us understand that technology is there to help us. That itself is a very lengthy process. Gaurav has been very patient in explaining to people, and I hope he continues to do that. But yes, technology do surprise us in a pleasant way more than once, and it has in this project, I think. So that's about it.
Yep. Also, one more example, like earlier researchers used to create visualizations manually, and I
Yes,
think
yes, yes.
that takes huge time. Like we have to draft 250 visualizations in 24 hours. You need to make sure that all of them are working really fine. But with the help of this technology coming in, we can automate and create multiple visualization types in the same amount, and create multiple time series. So we are not just presenting information on a very small time frame, but we are also able to produce the information on a very big time series that people can see from the bird eye perspective as well, what is happening on the ground.
I think also making the visualizations interactive has been a great idea, because that way, people who are not that familiar with technological jargons or the details of it can also just play around themselves and get the hang of it. So that I think has helped a lot. At least I can say for CBGA researchers here. So,
Nisha?
Nisha.
Sorry. That's awesome. That's really exciting. I love this site. I'm gonna shamelessly plug opencity.in, our urban data portal that us and the Urbani Foundation has slowly been working on. We took all your budget data immediately. And Citizen Matters, their
Great.
magazine, has been doing analysis on budget data for a long time, and they had all the PDFs and stuff. But it was just really great to just have the CSVs ready, everything sort of there, the explanation, how it all worked. It's really valuable in these arcane systems to allow people to access it and get a lot of transparency out of it. So thank you guys for all the work. And thank you for coming on our DataMeet Hangout and presenting the website and sharing your experience. We are looking forward to seeing what comes next. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Nisha, for having
Thanks,
us.
Nisha. Thanks, Nisha.
Thank you. And I'll be sending out the link to the YouTube video so you guys will have it for your files. Okay, great.
Great. Great.
Cool.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Thank you.